It's great feeling when that acrylic is done cutting. But then your eyes start scanning the edges, seeing how they came out. You might see some tool marks, little artifacts where it chipped instead of cut, or even cloudiness where some of the residual small chips have melted back onto your piece. I have typically just given each piece a quick sand and been on my way. But I wanted to find a way to get a consistent, quick, and not too expensive professional looking edge to my pieces. So in this DE Hammer video, we are going to look at several options that are available for finishing your acrylic cut edge. Now, if you enjoy videos like this, and if you are not already a subscriber, please press the subscribe button and bell so you get notified when new videos come out. So, let's get into the video. Before we get started, I'm using a nominal 5mm cast acrylic. I'm using some scraps to cut these out. Acrylic's expensive. So if you're using a different type of acrylic than me, you might get different results. So there are 3 ways you can polish an edge of acrylic. We will go over 2 of them, and that's going to be sanding and heat. We will not be going over fuming. That video will be a video all by itself. I've done it with 3D printing, and I just don't care for it. But again, that's another video. So in this one, I forgot to add the soap to the water, and I didn't really get these cleaned before I started doing all these. Now, my test pieces, I did it, and I did have better results with some of these items. I'll let you know which ones. That is an important step. Cleaning them off, getting any residual particles on there. So a lot of these, you will see what happens when you don't wash it off. That is a very important first step before you start doing any of these. Getting it clean, getting any debris, dirt, oil buildup, getting all that off before you do it. Otherwise, you're just going to smear it in and you're not going to get a uniform look. All right, so first let's go over sanding. Now, let's review what constitutes as sanding. I'm going to separate sanding into 2 different categories. Solid sanding and liquid sanding. Solid sanding is simply regular sanding paper, Micron graded polishing paper, or even acrylic nail files like you use for your fingers. You can use these dry, or you can soak them in water, then sand. Now, I recommend using solid sanding materials with water, as there is less dust particles flying everywhere. Liquid sanding is something like this Novus polishing kit, where the sanding particles are suspended in a liquid solution. All right, so first we're going to go over just regular nail files. So I added this one for a couple reasons. First, being a set like this is cheap in comparison to other sanding methods. You could also easily have access to these at your house. Plus, they're used on acrylic nails, so my curiosity got me thinking, why not try them? And just remember, if you use these on your projects and you borrowed these from someone like, let's say, your wife, replace theirs with new ones, please. Just like sanding paper, there are grits to nail files, so we will work our way up the grit scale to see how this one works. The kit I bought off Amazon had 3 grits. Now this works as well as it should for the grit level, but its final edge appearance quality is lacking. But it does have a smooth feel when you run your finger across the edge. What I could see these useful for is initial sanding for intricate carvings with lots of hard to get to inside cuts. So not a total loss, but just another tool you can use in your overall process. So still kind of leaves that frosted look. Not bad, but not great. All right, let's go on to the next one. Micro sheets. Now, I was surprised to see these. And pretty pleased with the results. I can tell when I did them on my test pieces, I did get much better results. They didn't get rid of everything, but they did a better job than what you're seeing on the test ones here. But I will have to say, the finish is amazing. I just love the finish feel of the Micron sheets. The The grits go from 30 microns to 1 micron, so 30 is the coarsest of them, and you work your way down to 1. Compared to sandpaper, this is more like a cloth than paper, so this will give you a little bit more flexibility in getting to tight corners if you have any. You can also use these drier with water, but I'm, again, going to recommend using it with water as it helps keep dust particles down. Now, there are tools you can attach these Micron sheets to. I didn't get one. I just was, let's do this by hand because I've had good results. Overall, these are pretty good. It does not give you, like I was saying earlier, it doesn't give you 100% clear edge, but this one is a little bit worse than some of my test ones. You do notice. I mean, it does give it a nice glossy feel and look. All right. Now for the tried and true way, sandpaper. I went from 150 grit up to 2,500, and then just stepped along the way for everything I had. Again, I used the sandpaper with water, did not do this dry. Sandpaper works. It's good. It gives you a more frosted look afterwards than a clean glossy. One of the things I always struggle with sandpaper is it's so rigid when you're sanding. A lot of times I find myself scraping backside and getting some marks. It's not as easy to use as, say, the Micron sheets. It scratches. I get a lot more scratches, and I have to be very careful when I'm using sandpaper. But it does give a good look. It does get rid of artifacts. It takes away any buildup, residual buildup. So it is a very good method. Again, I don't know if I can get on camera. Scratch I got. Sorry to get it on camera, but there's a nice scratch on. But I guess because of the camera angle or the lighting, it's just not going to show. All right. So now that we've gone over the solid sanding, there is a product called Novus. Now, I've seen a lot of negative and I've seen a lot of good with it. And on my test piece, I'm going to say it didn't do a great job of getting rid of the fine scratches or even the large scratches. I'm going to chalk that up because, like I said, I forgot to clean these really well. And that's where it matters. I've had this do much better job than what it did on this test piece. Look at that there. It's pretty dirty, but to the touch, you can feel that it feels like it's been sanded. It's a nice, glossy, smooth feel, but it did not get rid of scratches from full mark. With that being said, you got to follow the directions on this. I'm not going to blame it on the Novus. I'm going to blame it on me for this one. Like I said, I've done some other ones where I cleaned it real well and there was a noticeable effect. It also could be shelf life of the material after you open it. I don't know. It's going to take some more testing. With Novus, you start with bottle number 1, which is a polisher, and you apply that. And then you go to bottle 3, which is removes heavy scratches. And then you move to bottle 2, which removes fine scratches, and then back to bottle 1 to clean it all up. Like I said, I've had better results on some of my doing this video tests, and it did remove a fair number of scratches. It wasn't perfect, not by any means, but it did work. It did remove some of the scratches, and it gave a much better result than what I'm seeing on these small ones. I'm also going to chalk it up to the size on some of these, because especially when we get over to heat, the size of these are so small, and trying to get enough pressure and going on them, it was a lot harder than, let's say, the longer pieces, where I can move this Novus around and really it wasn't falling over and seeping over onto the front. Maybe I used too much on these, but I don't want you to write these off. You may have much better results than I did. Like I said, I've seen it on the internet. Some people are like, oh, this is great. And others who are, this is the worst product ever. I think what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to, one, do some more testing on this, work it out a little bit better, see, you know, try to be a little bit more scientific with it. But I will be using the number 1 on some of my finished pieces after I've gone through all the other processes. It does give it a nice sparkle or shine to it. All right. Now, well, let's move on to heat. So, sanding, we got some decent results with the sandpaper and with the Micron fiber. In heat, I was going to show you guys one with a lighter, but it doesn't work. You're just going to waste lighters and probably just end up burning it. It just doesn't get hot fast enough. It doesn't produce enough heat, and it doesn't produce a high enough heat first go around, so you just got to leave it there, and you're probably going to catch it on fire before you can move it around. Plus, especially if you're using a Bic, just forget it. You're just going to burn your hand unless you're using gloves. So with that said, we'll go over to the heat gun. Now, the heat gun, as many times as I tried this, I just cannot get anything to happen. Maybe I don't have a powerful enough heat gun. Maybe it's better, the heat gun's just better for bending acrylic or curving thinner acrylics, but with this 5mm, it did nothing. It heated it up. So, see, so we've still pretty much, that's just a normal finished edge, basically. It didn't do it. All right. So, now on to the BlueFlame Mapp Gas. This is going to be the best finish, in my opinion. But in conjunction with sanding. But it's also probably one of the hardest parts of this. It's not like, okay, leave it here. It's also probably the hardest out of all of them. It's going to take a lot of practice. Even while I was doing these, and I had practice and practice and practice. Different days, if there's higher humidity, lower humidity, it's hot, colder, you're going to have to adjust your flame. So always try it out on some practice pieces before you put it to your piece. It does have a good effect. And always, there's plenty of YouTube tutorials out there on how to use these and set these up, and always practice safety first before you just get one of these and start lighting things on fire. I'm not a big fan of fire here, but I put that, you know, made sure I kept my beard away and got this thing out. And so what you're doing with the fire is you're heating up the acrylic just enough so it's at that, it's melting, but then you want to pull the fire away so it solidifies right back up real quick. So you want it's an art, and it takes lots and lots of practice. Not too fast, not too slow. You know, too slow, you get fire. It's gonna burn. Too fast, nothing happens. So finding that sweet middle spot is going to take some practice. Plus, just because you're heating it up doesn't mean it's going to get rid of the tooling marks, you know. And just because we're heating it up doesn't mean the tooling marks are gonna disappear because you've melted it. No, it's gonna trap it in there. You have to work these tooling or build up spots out first. Otherwise, see, this is BlueFlame. And while it has a nice feel to edge, you know, it's still going to get rid of the. There, got some. I don't know if I can get it on camera enough. This corner right here, a little deformed because I left it on and caught on fire. You may flare up here or there in time lapse, but it does do something. But let's. I even did it with, I tried the Novus and then went over with the BlueFlame, this one as well. Again, still was going too slow. You can see how that melted and formed. Didn't get rid of, it's a hazy, speckly finish with the Novus, but better than just the Novus by itself. But the best results, of course, were with the Micron sheet BlueFlame. See, I'm going to chalk that up to I didn't clean this well enough. Otherwise, you get nice, clear edges. I mean, it's just smooth to the touch. It's great feeling. So make sure you use that soap and water on that before you start sanding. But that's what will happen if you... wasn't perfect, but I was getting a little better with the flame. You might be able to tell some of the deformity. I left it on one of the corners too long again, but not as bad as the other ones. And then here's Sandpaper. I mean, it's good looking, nice and clean. Sandpaper and the Micron sheet, they did the best. Not 100% perfect, but wow, it's smooth to the touch. It's awesome. I think I'm gonna go back and hit some of those up with #1 of Novus and see where that gets us. But so the best results were sanding and then flame. I think you're gonna the Micron paper. That's an interesting one. I think I'm gonna try to sand and then incorporate the Micron paper into it, see what kind of look I get, and then flame and just see what that does. That's going to be some tests further down the line. This was really just the first steps into it. I would like this video to be kind of a starting point for you and what you would like to get out of your finished edges. This is by far just a really fast overview of, you know, just two of the different methods, sanding and heat. There is fuming, and again, like I said, that's a different video. I did it with acetone for ABS prints to smooth it out, and it was a headache. I hate messing with those kind of chemicals, and it's very similar technique for doing it on acrylic, and those who can do it and stand it, awesome, great. It's just not my cup of tea. So overall, there are a lot of techniques and methods out there. While sanding with paper and Micron sheets and the flame have very good results, none of them alone does a perfect job. So for best results, I'm going to say sanding with paper or Micron sheets, then flame by far gives the best overall result. Also consider your edges when you're designing your pieces. Longer straight lines or larger curves are easier to sand and flame down, while smaller corners, tight curves, and short lines do not give you a lot of room to work with. And basically, I should have made these test pieces a lot larger than I did, but I was working out of scrap pieces because good acrylic is expensive, and it was also, I want to use this as a learning experiment. We're not always going to have the option to determine what the piece is if we're doing, especially if we're doing it for somebody else. So it's good to work with this on a smaller scale than thinking it's always going to be something large and easy to do. So this was a lot of good work. Always remember your steps. Man, I wish I had put that soap in this water. But again, you learn from stuff like this. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you have tried something that works for you, let us know down in the comments. And as always, my friends, keep making stuff.